Hey guys, it's Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. It's about a week overdue, but I am here now with part 2 of the unofficial patch 6.0 notes. In this part, we're going to look at the new champions added, talk about the multipliers, and we're just going to discuss the Karam multiplier change, which I didn't really pick up when I recorded the first patch notes part of this video, but I thought it was worth noting so that we can compare where the damage is now compared to where it used to be. So we're going to go through the champions, we're going to look at their multipliers. If you didn't catch part 1, that is where I discuss all the blessing detail informations, the awakening, the math. And I've got a video coming out later in this week to talk a little bit about the Iron Twins and about the currency gain that we're getting for the new blessing and awakening systems. So with that said, let's jump in and start taking a look at the part 2. So a few things to note here from the sort of patch release to now. We did have a couple of bug fixes that were released. They increased the count per chest for the rewards you get in Hydra. So this is what I expected them to do. I think they overlooked the change that they did. They added the soul stones as a potential reward to Hydra, but forgot to increase the quantity of rewards you got, which led to people getting sometimes no clan gold, less equipment, sometimes no Mithrala fragments. So this should fix that. Essentially, they just added one more additional reward, so it shouldn't be a problem. In addition, they also fixed some blessing cooldown issues. Both Brimstone and Phantom Touch, when they're not 6 out of 6 awakened, are not guaranteed, but they both have a cooldown. So the situation you had would be you attempt to apply Smite from Brimstone, it's a 20% chance, you fail, it would still go on cooldown. So effectively you had to wait 4 more turns before you could try again, when really what should have happened is what they've now made it do. It doesn't go on cooldown unless the Smite debuff is placed. And that is the same for Phantom Touch. It won't go on cooldown unless you proc Phantom Touch damage, although that is only a 1-turn cooldown, so it's far less of an issue than what Brimstone was. The other thing to note, I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, is the stages tool bugged? Is there an error? It isn't an error on my side, but effectively the Magic Affinity Iron Twins has a higher base resistance than the other affinities. It starts at 100 and then gets modified by a further 500. So that's why magic resistance is at 600, not 530 like the other affinities. Whether that's an intentional change or whether that just happens to be we copy pasted the array and forgot to change the numbers, I don't know, but I would imagine it's an error rather than an actual we want magic to be slightly tougher. So with Karam, we had some skill changes on the A1. It was basically a doubling of the poison, making it the true strength poison that it should be. We didn't get any base stat changes, but the key thing they changed here was the A2. And the old multiplier formula used to be quite complicated. It was attack times 1.8 plus 1 minus HP percentage. So that was his percentage of HP times 4. And loosely translated, it basically meant if he was on 50% HP, half health, he would be doing a 3.8 multiplier. If he was on 20%, it would be around about 5. And I think it bottomed out at somewhere around about 6 times multiplier. So what we now have is a flat 6.1 times attack, which then gets increased by 1.5, so multiplied by 1.5 if he's above 50% HP. So what we should see is this does actually end up doing more damage than before and is much more sort of applicable. It's easier to apply. As long as he's at full HP, he should really hit hard. It was godlike before, it still is godlike, it's probably just more godlike than it was before in the old multiplier, because obviously you would have to run him on lower HP, and trying to get him in that golden spot for the really good damage would have been really difficult. Does it actually change whether you play him? I mean, he's a poison exploder, so you kind of use the poisons to make his damage go well. He's still not as good as sort of Xavier and Elenarl. Obviously they are legendary champions, but it could be a fun champion. I think I've seen some content creators do some videos around him to kind of mess around with. He's not going to change the game, but it's a nice change so that it's more usable. So on to the first champion of this release, we have Skrank. He is a Void Epic. I actually pulled this champion when I was going for Yumiko, so I am going to be doing a guide on him this week so people can see if they've pulled him, whether he's worth building. He's got a quirky passive where he will change his attack percentage and crit damage number, basically increasing it for every HP burn up to a maximum of 25%. Think Ninja, but baby Ninja. And that's kind of the way to look at him. He is attack based, but he does hit really hard. The only problem is trying to activate that HP burn to get him up to these sort of ethos level nuke numbers, which is what we'll end up with here. So he's got a 3 times attack on the A1, he's got a 2.5 times attack on the A2 that hits twice, and then the AoE is a 3.8 times attack with a 1421 base attack. So he does hit really hard. Does he hit hard enough to really like break the meta? No. He's really difficult to activate in the arena because trying to get enough turns for the HP burn for you to go and then be able to rank up that damage is not good. However, I think he has a lot of utility in the right setup with Clan Boss, with Ninja specifically. So check out that champion guide that I'm going to be releasing later this week if you want to know more about him. But I think he's actually a solid nuke champion that could be used in multiple different ways. Next up, we got Franox. Franox is another attack-based nuker. He has got a 4009 base attack, but he's quite slow at 97. Again, an epic champion here. 3.4 times attack on the A1. That's quite strong, but it's nothing crazy. The A2 is bonkers if you can get rid of the buffs. So it has a condition. If there are no buffs, it deals twice the amount of damage. That basically makes it a 9.2 times attack multiplier. It is probably the top 20 hardest hitting single abilities in the game if you can activate that setup. 4.6 if you don't. So pretty crazy damage on that A2. And then he's got a triple hit A3, 1.8 times attack, triple hit, strong. Now it's a single target all the way. So you always have that problem, it's a single target. Does he actually like fit into a boss nuking capability? Well, the A2 is pretty strong, but it's not like crazy level. So it'll be a fun champion to see how hard you can get that A2 to hit, but otherwise I don't know whether you would use this champion an awful amount. Next up we got Durandal. He is another void, another nuker. They are pretty hard hitters, these epics, this time round. This guy has an A1 freeze, although there are probably better candidates for it. But he does have about 1,376 base attack. And then he has got some pretty hefty nukes. The A2 will ignore 15% defense, and it will also give him turn meter back. Think of Fulgur, think of Skrank on his A3 as well. They both give turn meter back whenever they critically hit. He will hit really hard on that A2 AoE. 3.9 is a godlike ability. And then he has got a single target nuke of 50% ignore defense on the A3. And he will veil himself if he kills someone. I think that's the condition. Again, it's a strong AoE nuke. It could be competent to nuke in probably gold 4 to gold 5, low gold 5, pretty comfortably in the right setup. It's a pretty hard-hitting ability. Outside of that, where would you use him? He might have some uses in Bommel with an A1 freeze, but still, a pretty strong damage dealer. It's good to see that the epics aren't piddly. I've got a guide that I'll be doing soon on Ziichi, one of the Doom Tower epics they added, and literally that champion cannot hit harder than this champion, and that's a problem because that champion only deals damage. So if they're going to release these kind of nuke champions, at least they're releasing them with good damage that you can actually make them useful. Next up we have Staltus Dragonbane. This guy is probably now, in my opinion, the #1 defense-based damage dealer in this game. He doesn't beat Solus, but his utility and around the sort of the extra stuff he does means that he's going to probably be more reliable as a DPS nuker for defense-based champions exclusively. So what have we got here? We have a base defense of 1454. That's pretty, I would say, mid to high for legendary. Pretty slow at 99, but not too bad. We have a double hit A1. That is a single target, is 1.9 times defense times 2. That is a godlike A1 ability. We have an A2, that is an AoE ability, double hit, 2.1 times defense. That basically is a 4.2 times defense. That is also godlike. And then we have the A3 here, which is another AoE. But what he does is he will place the increased defense on himself first, then attack. Now, alongside these, he does have debuffs. He does have a couple of utility pieces. On the A2, he's got stun, which is probably going to land on a double hit pretty regularly. The A3 debuffs are not so great because you get decreased crit damage on majority of PvE content, and you get decreased speed. So neither of them are that crazy good because of the way it's one of those, a bit like Isuga's A2, where it's dependent on the enemy's attack versus defense ratio. But he also has a passive, which will increase his damage based on the number of debuffs on a target. He will gain 5% damage increase on all of his abilities per debuff on each target, but it'll be only counted for the target. It's a bit like Bivol's heal. It's based on the target. So the most he can probably get is 5 times 10, 50% extra damage. But on average, in an arena setting, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 debuffs. It's probably going to be around about 15% more damage. It's similar to the way that Solus's ability works. The other nice thing about this champion is he ignores and reflects all decreased defense and weaken back on the enemy and poisons. If you want to run him in Agreth, he is basically going to keep doing that deflection effect to Agreth, putting those poisons back on her. This is probably the better one for that kind of Paragon-esque style strategy, where as long as you can keep him alive in regen, he'll never die because he'll never take poisons. It's kind of insane. In Arena, you cannot stop his damage from being at 100% because he will place the buff himself, and you can remove that buff, but you cannot drop his defense to reduce his damage output. This guy, if you pull him, is so good, even for progression, for arena nuking, for sort of specific Doom Tower bosses. He is a master of a champion. I really think he's one of the best champions in the game now, and probably the #1 defense-based nuker in the game, even beating Solus. He doesn't quite beat the damage of Solus, but because he's got 2 AoEs, he provides his own defense buff, which means you don't need a defense-based booster. You can run your existing Arbiter team if you wanted to. You can run another booster like a Kaimar. You're not requiring the Doomscreech or Siphi here. You will get that damage out consistently on 2 AoEs. And he's also got an A1 with 20% turn meter boost if there's a debuff out, any debuff. So easy to use, easy to implement. I really like this champion. Then we get to probably the most complicated champion I've had to do damage assessments for in a while. Acrizia, Void Dwarf. I went for her on Wednesday when it was a ×10. I didn't get her. I was really disappointed. This champion is an absolute monster. Probably the #1 PvE damage dealer in the game. Just because of the boss killing capability. Even stronger than Ninja. So let's talk about how this champion works. This champion has a passive which reduces any AoE ability damage by 50%. First. So that means most of the PvE damage you receive, considering 80% of all bosses deal AoE damage, she'll just halve straight out. Soloing content for this champion will be significantly easier than any other champion in the game because of that. It's basically a 50% damage mitigation before you count anything else. Then, if the boss's or target's HP is double that of Acrizia's, her entire damage profile changes. Instead of it being based on attack, she now bases it on the enemy's max HP, and it is insane. So when we talk about the abilities here, we're talking about 2 modes. We're talking about if it's a boss, which is enemy max HP, or if it's going to be sort of arena champions, to be honest, because even PvE waves will probably be double the max of her HP, so she's likely in that boss killing mode. But for arena, she's probably not. She's probably in that attack based mode. However, some arena champions like a high HP Duchess or a high HP Mountain King might be different. In terms of multipliers, what are we looking at? For an A1, it's a single target hit, provides decreased defense, which is really great for an A1. She does a 2.5 times attack if she is in arena mode, and a 0.2, so a 2% enemy max HP if she's in boss killing mode. This also has a passive which increases the damage up to 100% for every subsequent effect that she does. So she can basically double the damage here. So effectively it becomes a 4 times over, I think, 10 attacks. So it's pretty strong. The attack-based damage is about average. It's not very good on the A1, but the A1 is godlike because it is 2% enemy max HP, which effectively becomes 4%. The A2 is a double hit. She will do 2 times attack times 2, so 4 times attack multiplier in total when she is in arena mode, and she will also give herself a shield equal to the value of her max HP, I think it is, for each one. So if you're in Spider 20 or Spider 25, she's going to give herself an absolute giga charge shield. It's insane. In terms of the boss killing mode for that, it's a 5 times multiplier of the enemy max HP times 2. So that's basically a 10 times multiplier when you add the 2 together. Now, the thing to note about enemy max HP on bosses, in high-end content, it's capped at 10%. So you can multiply the 5% with crit damage, with a bunch of other things, which means that you're probably over the 10% sort of cap, even on the first hit. So what this ends up becoming with Acrizia isn't a 5% times 2, it's more like a 10% times 2, because both hits will exceed the 10% cap, but both hits are unique. So it means that you'll be able to do on the A2 20% of a boss's max HP. And it's the same thing with the A3. Her attack multiplier, it's a single target, the A3. It goes up from 2 times attack to 3 times attack times 2. And the same enemy max HP multiplier when she's in boss mode. But again, she's going to exceed that 10%. So you basically have a situation where if you're in boss killing mode, one full rotation is about half the boss's health. So she only needs 2 full rotations to really get you there. She is a monster in boss killing mode. In arena mode, not so strong, but still pretty good. A godlike nuke, nothing special. The nice thing about the A3 is it also steals 100% of the enemy's turn meter without requiring accuracy when she is in boss killing mode. This champion is probably the #1 PvE damage dealer in the game now, easily, I would say. It annihilates clan boss, it annihilates any Doom Tower bosses. Very hard to kill, very easy to build, because in boss killing mode you only care about crit damage, you don't really care about attack. It's just funky in the arena, it's not as strong for PvP. And finally then we come to Mighty Uko. He is the fusion champion. People will probably be getting him by the time this video comes out. He's not really a damage dealer, he is more of a utility champion. I still think he's very good. I know some people have done some tests on his passive and it hasn't worked out maybe as strong as we thought it would. I can't wait to get it myself so I can do some testing. I probably will do a spotlight on his passives and different things and the way it works and break into the sort of intricacies of his kit. But effectively, he is a attack base still. He's got a really, really strong base speed of 109. That's very good. That's up there with the top speed champions in the game. We have an attack of 1,233. A1 is 2.5 times attack, and the A2, which is AoE, is 2 times attack times 2. So he has a double AoE here, places decreased attack on the A1, steals pretty much any buff in arena as long as it's not protected. There's no lightning cage and lightning orbs out and all that kind of stuff. His passive will probably be annoying. I still think he is one of the best fusions we've ever had. 100% people, I hope you have got him and you're going to get him. But again, he's not a damage dealer. Don't expect him to be one-shot in champions. He'll do a decent amount. Put it War Master on him and he'll really help your team. But that is Mighty Uko. So there you go, guys. That is the end of part 2. Sorry it was a little later than normal. I think these champions are some of the best champions we've actually had released into the game in a while, in a batch. You know, we haven't really got any useless champions. Yes, we have some champions that are epics that maybe won't break any sort of end game meta, won't necessarily make any speed teams super fast, but they're usable, they're fun, they will work, they're not total useless. And I think certainly some of them could be really fun to see how hard you can hit. Specifically Franox with that A2, I really want to see a 400,000 to 500,000 hit in certain situations with that 9.2 multiplier. Let me know in the comments below if you've pulled any of these new champions, how you've used them and what you think of them. I've got videos coming up this week on some champion spotlights, more blessing guides coming out, so keep an eye on that. But I will catch you in the next video.